Hey, I'm Madeline Underwood, and I'm doing my presentation over labeling in schools. Alright, so the main four labels that you hear in a school setting is gifted and talented, intellectually disabled, learning disabled, and emotionally disabled.
Some psychologists uh, find these lines to be blurry, where one of them would diagnose a child as learning disabled and another would diagnose a child as intellectually disabled. So sometimes these lines do get a little fuzzy of which category the child needs to be in.
With gifted and talented students, um, they are the students that are well above everybody else. Sometimes they may just be a little bit above, but most of the time they are way past the standard, way past the bar. Schools offer programs like gifted programs, alpha programs. Every school has a different name for it. But these students are given more substance during lessons, and teachers have to adjust their lesson plans for them just like they do any other kind of learning disability. So, intellectual disabilities, this terminology has replaced the terminology of mental retardation. So, this includes the intellectual functioning and adaptive behavior. So, it will include both if they are intellectually disabled. So, a learning disability, these include things like ADD, ADHD, dyslexia. So these are things that affect the learning of basic skills such as reading, writing, or math. They can also kind of affect time planning, organization, reasoning, long-term and short-term memory. All of those factors are included in learning disability. So a lot of times the line between learning disability and intellectual disability are fuzzy, and it's hard to diagnose one way
Or the other.
Emotional disability is pretty easy to distinguish from the other two in the sense that it doesn't deal with the child's ability, but rather their emotional state at the time. And different factors can go into how the emotional disability affects the child. But I've listed some common characteristics to look for when looking into if a child may be emotionally disabled. Right, so to briefly go over some of the effects that labeling can have on students, first I want to tell you that not all students are affected by labels. Some of the learning disabled students outside of academics, they excel at things like sports or anything in the social aspect. But some of the labels do carry connotations or perhaps stigmas that if I have a learning disability, I'm stupid. Or if I have an intellectual disability, that means I'm retarded and I can never do anything with my life. Even though none of that is true, some of these students take on that persona. Another thing to look at is that they could be socially rejected by their peers. So even people that have been friends once that person has been diagnosed and is now having to go to special education classes, they can be seen as, well, you're not good enough to be in our group of friends anymore. Or if they've been put into the gifted and talented group, their average friends may think, well, she feels like she's too good for us now. And that can affect a child socially.
The last thing I have listed here, it talks about the labels. They can be linked to socioeconomic statuses as well as an individual's color. So society has made these connections as well as research showing the correlation between a socioeconomic status, a individual's color, and then their academic success. They have been linked.
Last bit of information I want to leave you with is that the reason why we still have these labels is because of federal funding. The government funds all of our special education programs, gifted and talented programs, and to be able to be qualified for these programs, the student has to have that label. They have to be diagnosed with that specific problem, or they have to be tested for these things, and to be able to get that funding, that labeling has to be there. It is a part of the system, and until we can change the system, we are stuck with those labels.
Thank you for listening to my presentation.